I actually found this at DVD Exchange yesterday. They don't make these anymore. Look at that. It just pops open like that. Look. That's cool. It has... You could read the screenplay and view storyboards while watching the film. They have so many special features on here. Like, look at that. Let's bring back physical media, people. Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing good. Today I'll be talking about a horror film that was released in the year 2000 called Final Destination, which sparked an entire franchise, which I will be covering on the channel, leading up to Final Destination Bloodlines. If y'all didn't watch my review on the Final Destination and how much that movie sucked, go check it out. I think you have a lot of fun with it. Final Destination was directed by James Wong, who also directed Final Destination 3, as well as these pieces of garbage and some producing and writing credits on The X-Files, and is about a teenager whom, after having a vision of him and his classmates dying in a plane crash, he prevents the incident only to have death hunt them down one by one. If you grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s, you would know that this era of horror was pretty unique. You had gems like Scream and the Dawn of the Dead remake, as well as guilty pleasures like Anaconda, The Faculty, and even Freddy vs. Jason. But I do think there's one franchise that doesn't get the credit it deserves, and that's Final Destination. This first Final Destination film was originally an unmade episode of The X-Files, where Scully's brother has a premonition of a plane crash and tries to warn everyone until he moved from the plane. Mulder and Scully protect their brother and the remaining survivors when death occurs, taking them one by one. There is a difference between the original script than the movie, and that's death takes a physical form as a sheriff in the original script, whereas in these movies, death is caused by freak accidents. I'm not sure why it all changed, but it's still pretty interesting. One of my favorite things about these movies is that you never really know how it's going to play out when they die. They could be surrounded by something dangerous, such as knives, or so you're thinking, oh, so they're going to run to a knife or accidentally stab themselves. But after this elaborate sequence, a lot of the times they just end up slipping on a banana peel and then a Buddha statue will land on their head. Now, the first one isn't perfect, and I'll get into my minor negatives with it later on in the review, but the movie starts out with a class of high school students on their way to a class trip to Paris, but before they take off, two guys go poop together. No shame, no judgment, just everyday bro things. Our main character, Alex, played by Devon Sawa, then has a vision of a plane crash killing him and his classmates. And I thought the way this scene was executed couldn't have been better, or even moments later when they cheat death and the plane takes off and reveals the actual explosion. The way you can't hear the explosion until the glass shatters just added a more sense of realism to it. I know I gave shit to James Wong in my The Final Destination movie review where I mentioned Dragon Ball Evolution, but with this first film and the third one, he really does shine as a director. And he does a good job of making you self-aware for these characters. In a way, you could feel like everything around them could potentially harm them. And I say this like I'm not surrounded by a bunch of wires and a half-drink can of Red Bull sitting on my desk. The ways in which this cast is killed off is often creative. Todd's death that takes place in the restroom. I remember watching that one when I was a kid, and it was one of those deaths that stuck with me. As well as the kitchen scene with the teacher. And Billy's death, played by Seann William Scott, when a piece of metal is stuck underneath the train, flinging into the air, chopping his head off. And in between all these elaborate deaths, there's just that one scene where that girl just gets hit by a bus.
Then you can just drop fucking dead.
It still has that late 90s teenage angst, while still taking itself more seriously. Devon Sawa really does shine as the lead in this film, and most recently I saw him in Hard Eyes, which was also a pretty fun movie. And he's also pretty good in the Chucky series. Seann William Scott is always funny. There's a scene at the beginning where he's going up to Alex thinking he's like the psychic. Tony Todd stepping in as the voice of reason and terror is also legendary. And many have no idea who he is, and they never connect that he played Candyman. One small detail I noticed towards the end was during that train sequence, which was actually one of the best parts of the movie, when Carter is stuck in his seatbelt and Alex pulls him out. You could clearly see that Carter pissed his pants, but the camera doesn't focus on it, and nobody ever mentions it. It's just a human reaction that endears you to the mortality of these characters. Unless James Wong or the writers was like, hey, we already saw these two dudes poop, let's make another one piss himself. Leading into my minor negatives with the film, which aren't much, our characters coincidentally all run into each other at public at times. And then also, the third act isn't as strong as those two first acts. The third act feels more like it was reshot or edited or something, but to me, it always felt like an alternate ending. Apparently, the test audience at the time wanted one last kill, which is why they changed it. But anyways, that's all I have to say about the first Final Destination film. I feel like the ones after this really do get hyped more, except that piece of shit. But overall, a solid start to a great franchise, and I can't wait to talk about the rest of them with you guys. I look forward to bringing you guys more reviews soon. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Matt, and I'll see you guys in the next video.